It's an exciting time to be a wrestling fan. We got the draft coming up. We got a brand new champion, and everybody's basically out there celebrating to the moon that Roman Reigns got himself suspended. But all that pales in comparison to the most important question of the month. What did you all ask the Phoenix? What's going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz. Phoenix is a YWC reality check here with the June edition of Ask the Phoenix. If you've never seen Ask the Phoenix before, here's the deal. I'll have another one next month. You want your questions put into that Q&A, you put your questions in the comment section of this video. Try to limit it to 10. There's one here that's a little more than 10, making an exception for one of the usual suspects. But typically in the past couple of months, I've asked people to limit it to 10, only because I had amazing people who took me literally when I said, hey, I don't care, guys, ask me 100 questions. And they did. So, as great as that is, it doesn't mean that the rest of you want to sit here and listen to me do a video forever. But yeah, so if you want your questions in the next Q&A, you put your comments in, you put your questions in the comment section of this Q&A, and it is what it is. So starting off the Q&A for June, we have Cow. Who would you have put in the legitimate son storyline and why? I wouldn't have, because I wouldn't have done it. The illegitimate, like, I get that some family shit works, brother versus brother, father versus son, all that type of thing. But the illegitimate parentage thing, it kind of makes me think of, like, the pregnancy angles. And if we think about it, the last big pregnancy angle they did in WWE was when Kane was the father of Lita's baby and Matt Hardy in the background saying, oh no. And they had to do something stupid to get themselves out of that storyline, because obviously she wasn't actually pregnant. There actually wasn't going to be a baby. So they had the whole Snitsky debacle, you know, it wasn't my fault and all that kind of thing. I think it was one of those times. It's like the the anonymous Raw GM. They spent so long on it thinking that it was cool at the time without booking a finish, so long that that no answer would have worked. No final result. I don't think we wanted a final result. I think we liked the idea of laughing at Vince McMahon. Aha, you have a kid you didn't know about and now you're fucked. And consider the Terminator scenario, where the first couple of movies deal with leading up to Judgment Day, and they make the event of Judgment Day so mythical and so iconic that actually putting the event of Judgment Day on screen was a very, very tough thing to do, and it's questionable whether they did a good job or not. Who would I put in the story? I wouldn't have chosen anybody, because I personally wouldn't have done it. What are some of your favorite sports? You know, I'm sure this won't be a surprise to a lot of people. I'm not a particularly athletic person. I have in the past played soccer. I have in the past played baseball. My family does a golf thing once a year, and I pretty much suck at that too. Not a big sports guy, not a big watching sports guy other than WWE. You know, if somebody's having an event, like, you know, if there's a company picnic somewhere and they do the fun, stupid games, like the wheelbarrow races and the three-legged race, I'll do fun shit like that. But as far as actual, like, sports, I don't really. I hope that's not a shitty answer. What do you think is the biggest what could have been in WWE history? The biggest one that sticks out in my mind is if they had gotten Sting early enough to get Sting versus Undertaker in their respective primes, because they were the dark, mythical, mysterious characters of the respective brands. So you could have had the dark icon of WCW versus the dark icon of WWE, and that would have been a really cool, real easy, real obvious story to do, but it was one that everybody waited for, and now it's just but then again, we get into what I've said on this channel a lot, whereas, you know, 10-15 years ago, when both of those companies were at their respective primes, we took a snapshot in our minds back then of what the Undertaker versus Sting would have been like, and I think any time after that we would have carried that single picture in our minds into the match and been disappointed. So it's a huge what could have been scenario, but at the same time, it might be one of those scenarios that's better lived out in the fan's mind, if that makes sense. if they had gotten more big names in time for the invasion angle, that would have been cool as well. Who do you think is the most overrated wrestler in WWE right now? Three names come to mind. Titus O'Neil, Naomi, obviously, and Charlotte. Now, I say Charlotte. Now, don't misquote me on this, because I do think that Charlotte is amazing, and there is a certain amount of shit that she does bring to the table. She's a great wrestler in the ring most of the time. She doesn't sell, but whatever. But it's the first two I could do without on my TV completely, happily. Charlotte is great. I don't mind her being on my TV. I don't think she's nearly as great as the WWE, and some of her fans think she is. So don't get me. I'm not saying that Charlotte sucks. I'm just saying she's not quite as great as what she should be. Do you think wrestlers need more characters? Because I think a lot of them are lacking that. Some wrestlers need characters. And I say some because there's always the scenarios out there where, you get a Daniel Bryan versus CM Punk situation, and everybody's going to look forward to the match and not really care how we got there. You're going to be more excited about the match than the story or the character or who's the good guy or who's the bad guy. Characters help sometimes. Stories help sometimes. But in the suspension of disbelief that we all try to have as wrestling fans, we try to treat wrestling like it's a real sport. Real sports, real fighters, real boxing. I don't watch boxing or UFC or any of that shit. I know they talk a lot of garbage to each other, but you don't need to not like somebody. You don't need to be this specific character. You don't need to be sitting there saying, well, that guy slapped my wife last week, so I'm going to show him this week. No, in a real sport, you're like, okay, that guy's here on the roster, I'm here on the roster. If I beat him, I'll be here on the roster. And you don't really... So if you want wrestling to have the realism to it and the, like I said, the suspension of disbelief, the suspension of kayfabe, and be treated like competition, so to speak, you can pull back on characters a little bit and focus on the athleticism, focus on the, kayfabe competition of it. That's what happens when you get a face versus face or a heel versus heel scenario, is you don't have that clear-cut cheer, boo, I'm going to cheer for who I want. And maybe, just maybe, sit back, put my critic hat on hold, and enjoy the match itself. And that works. That doesn't work all the time. If you have somebody that's great at portraying characters, like a Cody Rhodes was, for just one example, and they have a strength in that, then obviously play it up. If you got somebody like Mark Calloway, who took The Undertaker, who we just spoke about a second ago, and made it the best character in wrestling history, then obviously play that up. I don't think it's necessary all the time. I think you have to have a good mix of, and this is probably not going to make any sense at all. You have to have a very good mix of great characters and pulled back characters, so that you have some story-driven feuds and some physically-driven feuds, some competitively-driven feuds, where because sometimes you have to believe that these guys are in a league, and they're just trying to get better in their league. They're just out there to prove that they're better than the next guy. You don't need a character or a storyline if that's what you're running with. Very, very convoluted answer, I'm sorry, but it's not a clear-cut thing. Do you think WWE should have a female Money in the Bank match? Yes, if they can make it in a non-condescending way. Because ever since they had the Women's Revolution, Divas Revolution, whatever you want to call it, they've been trying to show that women can do it just as badass as the men, which is good, and that's fantastic, and I support that 100%. You guys know I'm a big pusher of the women's division on this channel at the best of times. All my thumbnails are freaking Divas matches practically, but we have to be careful that it doesn't become a condescending thing where it's just, oh well, the guys do it, so let the girls do it now too. You can use the Money in the Bank concept and maybe say, you know what, that's how the guys do it, this is how the girls are going to do it. Have the women have a Money in the Bank tournament. Get all the women of the main roster and the NXT roster in a gigantic tournament. Or not a battle royal, because that's a shit example. But have them have a similar cash-in scenario, but don't necessarily have them cash in. Now, that being said, all that theology of, you know, just, you know, anything the guys can do, the girls can do, and we'll just throw the same thing at them and book it lazy. All that aside, would I love to see it? Would I love to see the match itself? You know, regardless of the briefcase, would I love to see Paige, Becky Lynch, Sasha Banks, Liv Morgan, Deonna Purrazzo, Asuka, Bayley in a multi-woman ladder match? Fuck yes. Fuck yes. I think they could blow it away. I think there's some things that they could do in that match that the men can't do, and I would love to see something like that. I don't think you have to do it a carbon copy. What I'm saying is the women can do this thing that the men do, but I don't think they have to do it the same way that the men do it. But all that overthinking aside, would I love to see the match? Fuck yes. What are some of your favorite finishers? And thank God I'm not the only one that loves The Miz. Well, speaking of The Miz, I love the skull crushing finale because there's an arrogance to it. It's that metaphorical I'm putting your face in the dirt type of thing. But it's also a pretty cool move in general. What the Dirty Deeds was before they just turned it into a DDT, that very similar, like that face first face plant DDT that Dean Ambrose used to do was pretty cool. I really like the Blue Thunder Bomb of Sami Zayn, and obviously, for obvious reasons, I like Seth Rollins in the Phoenix Splash. Now, last week on Raw, they were in Phoenix and he was facing Roman Reigns. I really wanted to sit here and be that guy. I wanted to be the guy on the Spaz Phoenix channel that talked about Rollins doing the Phoenix Splash in Phoenix, because that's how lame I am. Just would have made me smile is all. That's a few. Obviously, I love the Pedigree. Pedigree's fucking great. The Red Arrow by Neville, who we all hope is coming back soon, is another really, really good one. Classics like the Tombstone and the Stunner and stuff like that. There's lots. The Canadian Destroyer is an interesting one, which we haven't seen in a while because I don't watch TNA anymore. Anyways, thank you for that, cow. Zohan. Holy crap, buddy. Incidentally, I gotta talk to you guys for a second. And this is a really, really minute complaint on my part. I had to copy and paste all the comments from for this month's Q&A into a text document and sort of space them out, because a lot of you guys are usually pretty good at sort of putting them in like bullets that each question is a line. I got a lot that were just really, really mashed up paragraphs, which is not terrible, but for me sitting here right now in front of the camera talking to you guys, being like, okay, the next question starts here in this mashup of questions, does make it a little harder for me to read, makes me look a little bit more awkward. So if we can keep that in mind, it would be appreciated. Oh yes. Zohan, if WWE would have turned Roman Reigns heel, when should it have been done? On the Raw, the Shield broke up the SummerSlam against when he and Dean Ambrose faced the Wyatt family. WrestleMania 31 versus Brock, WrestleMania 32 versus Triple H, or the post Royal Rumble, or Extreme Rules versus AJ Styles, or Survivor Series versus Dean Ambrose, because the rest of them, it's all just. I mean, if he had turned on Dean when they were facing the Wyatt family probably would have won, and the Wyatt family are kind of over as tweeners, so the reaction would have been, eh. If he turned heel on Brock Lesnar's billed as a heel. Same thing with Triple H. So you're just being more aggressive as a face to the heel because they're already cemented in that heel role. Versus AJ Styles. AJ Styles was slowly turning heel anyways, so I don't think it would have made a difference. Because of the fans' love of Dean Ambrose, I would have said Survivor Series against Dean Ambrose at the end of that tournament. But then friggin' Sheamus came along and wasn't that awesome. Thoughts on Randy Orton's punt kick as a finisher? Do you think it deserves to be protected as it was? Do you think it should be brought back? I love the punt. But the reason that I love the punt is the same reason that I understand WWE getting rid of it. And that's simply that anybody can do it. WWE has to be concerned about, and I don't want to be like a big WWE apologist here, but I have to use a little bit of logic. The reason I love the punt is because it's simple and it's believable and it's relatable. Any one of us can can think of, if we're in a real fight and the guy's down, kick him in the face. It doesn't require any particular skill or setup or something. Like, in a real fight, you're not going to set up somebody for a pedigree or a styles clash. You're not going to hope that they stay on the ground long enough to do an aerial maneuver. You're going to see them. You're going to see that they're down. You're going to kick them in the face. It's very easy. It's very relatable. Now, the downside of that is, as I said, anybody can do it. And if your kid is watching WWE and sees Randy Orton doing that, it's very easy for him to go punt his brother or sister in the face. So, like I said, the same thing that makes it very realistic and very relatable is the thing that makes it very dangerous for a young crowd. And let's be real, the young crowd is where WWE has their focus. So, for them to get rid of it, shitty as it is, and, you know, we can comment about PG and how it's pussifying wrestling and all that sort of thing, I gotta say this one kind of makes sense. What's the biggest mistake WWE made during the initial brand split? The initial brand split, the biggest mistake they made was not making SmackDown live like they are this time around. Because here's the deal: you had that steamrolling effect. You had people didn't watch SmackDown because they read the spoilers, and if there was something grandiose that happened on SmackDown, they found out a couple days ahead of time, so they didn't have to watch. Now, because people had that mentality, WWE sort of took that mentality in turn and didn't do very much surprising stuff on SmackDown. They saved their surprising stuff for the Raw brand. So you've got one that's must-see that you have no idea what's going to happen, and one that's, you know, it's going to be okay. You're going to have some good shit happen, but there's spoilers, and you can tell WWE held back on them a little bit. The other thing, too, and where they didn't help themselves, is anytime they had a Raw versus SmackDown scenario, especially in the Battleground pay-per-view, they always portrayed SmackDown as the underdogs, and SmackDown usually always won in those scenarios. But the constant underdog scenario doesn't work when the underdog always wins, because then they're not an underdog. So present them on equal footing this time around is going to be my biggest suggestion there. In which years did WWE's SummerSlam pay-per-view outdo WrestleMania's? You guys know me, I'm not good with years and dates or whatever, but the two that stick out to me are, I think it's 2002, when there was the no-holds, or the non-sanctioned match between Triple H and Shawn Michaels, and whatever year, a couple years ago, that Brock Lesnar fought CM Punk. Who is the least deserving of a clean victory over The Undertaker, Vladimir Kozlov or the Great Khali? I'm going to say the Great Khali, because the Great Khali was straight up horrible. Vladimir Kozlov wasn't a big guy or a big name. He wasn't a particularly big, you know, attraction in WWE, but he had a very unique style to him, like that. I think it was like the Muay Thai, whatever his style was. I can't think of the name right now. But whatever it was unique and he did it well. Khali didn't have any style. Khali was there because he was big and because they needed an Indian superstar to get the Indian demographic, which is fucking terrible. And Undertaker was sacrificed to that super hard. Rank the following matches from worst to best: Steiner versus Triple H at the Royal Rumble 2003, Brett versus Vince McMahon at WrestleMania 26, or Jerry Lawler versus Michael Cole at WrestleMania 27. I gotta put Steiner versus Triple H on top, even though it was terrible, because it was an actual match. Bret Hart versus Vince McMahon was a long segment with Vince McMahon and the entire Hart family, and it was terrible. And Jerry Lawler versus Michael Cole makes me want to not admit that I'm a wrestling fan. So, those two are tied for worst. But Steiner versus Triple H, I mean, it's terrible, but it is a wrestling match. The other two aren't. And that's how I have to look at it. You've got Bret Hart, who's far past his prime, versus Vince McMahon, who's not a wrestler. And you got Jerry Lawler, who, for all intents and purposes, is an announcer versus another announcer. It's just bad. Should the WWE have separate pay-per-views for Raw and SmackDown during the newly reinstated brand split? Now, they've released some tentative schedule for WWE for the schedules for the rest of the year, and they're saying that they're going to do 2 pay-per-views a month. I don't think that's the way to go. I've said it a couple weeks ago. I wouldn't say keep it to 1 a month. I wouldn't say do 2 a month. What I would say would be have a pay-per-view every 3 weeks, but alternate it. So that Raw has a pay-per-view, then SmackDown has a pay-per-view, then Raw has... Because, yes, you're getting a pay-per-view every 3 weeks, but each brand has 6 weeks to build their show. So they actually have more time to build a show. It's a way for them to give us more shows, but also give each show more build. Obviously, you would have the big four would still be connected: the Rumble, the Survivor Series, SummerSlam, and WrestleMania. Because obviously, WrestleMania is WrestleMania, SummerSlam is SummerSlam. Everybody's going to participate in the Royal Rumble, and you know at Survivor Series there's going to be some Raw versus SmackDown shit. And I really hope NXT throws their name in the hat there as well. Rank the Cody Rhodes personas from worst to best: Stardust, Dashing, Rhodes Scholars, Brotherhood, Legacy. They're all. I'm sorry. Right after the Dashing, when he got smacked in the face and he was wearing the mask and he thought he was disfigured and deranged and all that sort of thing. He was almost pulling some Mick Foley Mankind-ish promos. That's by far the best Cody Rhodes. Everything else can sort of fall into place. Stardust, here's the thing. People shit on the Stardust thing, right? Because it is lame, and in its infancy, it was a Goldust 2.0 scenario. But for what it was, whatever you want to call it, Cody Rhodes did throw himself into that gimmick 100% in a way that if he hadn't, it would have been even worse. The various tag teams, the Brotherhood, the Rhodes Scholars, and in there with Legacy with Ted DiBiase. The thing with Legacy always makes me laugh, because everybody you hear interviewed thought that Ted DiBiase was going to be the one that was going to be shot to the moon, and Cody Rhodes was kind of going to be Janetti'd, which is kind of shitty. Similar to when Randy Orton was in Evolution, and people thought that Batista was going to be pushed to the moon, and Randy Orton got the push instead. Now, Batista still went on and did stuff, obviously. But, you know, shaking babies and kissing hands and all that shit. So it's an interesting dynamic there. So, you know, we've got all our faith in this guy, so I'm going to flourish. But the disfigured Cody Rhodes, the Intercontinental Champion, friggin' he beat up Rey Mysterio with his own leg brace, so that's always going to make you smile, isn't it? Thoughts on Jeff Hardy's recent comment about wanting to end his wrestling career at WrestleMania? Give him a match. He's not going to main event. I'm sorry, that much isn't going to happen, but give him a match at WrestleMania to finish it out. I'm going to sneeze. And Zohan says in big capital letters, just some extra questions I thought were interesting. You don't have to answer them if you don't want to. Because you put that giant disclaimer on it, I will give you a pass. I will give you an exception. And also because I think you're on every single one of my Q&As since this started, so I can't really say no, can I? Which wellness policy came at a worse time, Rob Van Dam or Roman Reigns? Rob Van Dam in 2006 or Roman Reigns currently? I gotta say, Roman Reigns, because even though Rob Van Dam was a world champion, he wasn't given the keys to the castle like Roman Reigns has been. As far as placement in the company, Rob Van Dam was never placed in a position like Roman Reigns is now. Roman Reigns is in the catbird seat. Like even not being the champion, he's on his way to being their next sort of John Cena character. So as far as how much could potentially be lost by the fuck up in the suspension, like I'm not judging anybody. If you got your own demons, your own issues, whatever, that's your own business, and it's unfortunate. And I wish the guy well. I know a lot of people hate Roman Reigns, but I wish the guy well. I hope he's okay, and I hope he comes back, and I hope he friggin' succeeds. But I mean, Roman Reigns lost, or potentially has lost, a lot more than Rob Van Dam did. That's just my opinion. Leading up into the 2015 Survivor Series pay-per-view, Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns for the WWE Championship was advertised, though it had to be canceled due to Rollins' knee injury. Tournament was set up to crown a new champion, which Reigns won. Do you believe that Reigns should have won the title at that pay-per-view, regardless of if Rollins had been injured or not? Wow. They could have done that. They could have done that. The only person that would have lost in that scenario, the only person that gained in that scenario was Dean Ambrose, because Dean Ambrose got to be in the finals. He got to main event the pay-per-view with Roman Reigns instead of Seth Rollins. If you had Roman versus Reigns. If you had Rollins versus Reigns in the main event, Dean Ambrose would have been, chalked down somewhere else on the card. I think if Rollins hadn't been injured, we would have gotten the Shield triple threat a lot sooner than now. is what I was. You could have had Dean Ambrose interfere somehow. You could have had, you know, some shenanigans. Somebody else interferes in the match, so Dean comes to counteract that and costs Roman the title, or some shit like that. I don't know. I can't really speculate. I mean, people would shit on Roman Reigns anyway. Roman Reigns would be in the same position he's in now. Rollins would have held the title longer than he did, and people were shitting on him too, so I don't know what the better scenario would have been there. The Wrestling Observer newsletter has stated that WWE knew about Reigns' wellness policy violation before the Money in the Bank pay-per-view and still let him compete at the pay-per-view. To believe he still would have dropped the title if he hadn't violated the code. Well, you had to set up the domino effect, because this is the only way. Reigns losing the title to Rollins and Rollins then losing the title to Dean is the only way you get the triple threat. If Roman had won and Dean had cashed in on Roman, you would have had a scenario where Roman would have had a rematch clause, and you would have had Roman versus Ambrose at Battleground, and Rollins wouldn't have a case to make for being in that triple threat match. So they had to do that. I think they were going to do that anyway. The rumor that WWE knew about his substance abuse ahead of time and potentially could have let him continue to compete with other people while knowing that he's violating the wellness policy, I don't entirely believe that 100%. I mean, it could be true. I don't know what goes on backstage, and much like most marks out there, I'm not going to pretend that I do know what goes on backstage. I find it hard to believe that somebody under the influence of any sort of unsafe substance would be sent out on a main event to main event a pay-per-view, not only because they could very well fuck up a main event, like think Jeff Hardy Sting back in 2011 in TNA, even though it's my boy, kind of fucked up that night. Could have fucked up the match, and you're putting that star and two potential other stars at risk by doing that. I find it very hard to believe that WWE would take that gamble, even though it was in Vegas. Ha ha ha. But I honestly don't know. I really and truly and honestly don't know. If Daniel Bryan hadn't been sidelined in 2014 for the during his WWE World Heavyweight title reign, do you think he would have been in the same position as John Cena at SummerSlam 2014 and dropped the title to Brock Lesnar in a one-sided squash? No. And this is one of those things that I know that people love Daniel Bryan. I don't understand how fucking much everybody was pulling for Daniel Bryan versus Brock Lesnar. I really don't. Because, again, and it goes to what I was saying earlier, so much of wrestling depends on your suspension of disbelief, right? So, in a real fight, Brock Lesnar would devour Daniel Bryan. That's a thing. And I'm not saying that to be disrespectful to Daniel Bryan, please don't get me wrong. But in a real fight, Daniel Bryan would get demolished. He would put the yes lock on, and Brock Lesnar would stand up with him on his back like he did with Cena, who's a lot bigger than Daniel Bryan. You wouldn't have had the squash match because all the Daniel Bryan fans would have been crying in their beards and had a fucking heart attack if something that real happened. But at the same time, if you have Daniel Bryan go over Brock Lesnar, then you have a Rey Mysterio beat the Big Show for the 100th time scenario, and it's shit. Nobody wins. If Daniel Bryan wins, it's completely unbelievable, and if Brock Lesnar rightfully wins, everybody's upset about it. So it wouldn't have been a squash. Wrestling fans wouldn't have let it be a squash. They would have shit their pants and whatever. But I don't think that they would have. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to see the match. Maybe I'm the only one. Maybe I am the only one, but I didn't give a shit about the possibility of Daniel Bryan versus Brock Lesnar. So many better pairings that you could have done. For both guys. I mean, it didn't do any good for either guy. Cheney815 says, I was kind of expecting the Cruiserweight debate video by the time that I typed this. Oh well, I hope this will suffice. Now, you guys that have been watching for a long time know that the past 2 years I've done a video called The Great Cruiserweight Debate, talking about why WWE should bring the Cruiserweight title back and the Cruiserweight division back. With the fact that we're getting the Cruiserweight Classic, I didn't feel the need to do it this year because we might be getting it anyway, is the explanation for that one. Thoughts on the Cruiserweight Classic tournament in general? I love it. I think it's great. I think it's great that they've gone far afield and they're not just using their current signed talent. They're using a lot of guys that have had a bit of a testing period in NXT. Mauro Ranallo and Daniel Bryan as commentators is an interesting pairing, as long as, because I saw on Facebook just before I started doing this video, they did sort of an introductory thing, just showing you who all the 32 competitors are. Some of them I know, some of them I don't. Obviously, I know Brian Kendrick and Tajiri and Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano and all these guys. It was cool. It just gave a second to introduce everybody, and realistically, it gave all the photographers in the arena a chance to photograph all the wrestlers. But it seems like both Mauro Ranallo and Daniel Bryan are trying to get over Daniel Bryan as a commentator, and if that's a theme going forward, I'm going to have a bit of an issue with it. But if we have an entire... basically what we're having is we're having an entire show based around Cruiserweight Wrestling and acknowledging it as its own entity, Cruiserweight Wrestling. The one thing I've given TNA in the past couple of years, even though they've gone into the shitter, is they set aside and they made the X Division feel special, and you need to do that. You can't have... Like I just said a second ago, you wouldn't have Daniel Bryan versus Brock Lesnar if there was a Cruiserweight division, because Daniel Bryan would have had a lightweight division, and he would have dominated it, and rightfully so. But there's reality in there. And in Cruiserweight Wrestling, when it's done properly, I know people shit on the Cruiserweight division because they did a bunch of things. They gave it to Jackie, and they gave it to Hornswoggle. I didn't mind them giving it to Jackie, because Jackie's a lightweight by WWE standards. She wanted to be a trailblazer like Chyna was when she won the Intercontinental title and went in the Battle Royal and all that sort of thing. It's all great. It's all great. But, you know, they did some questionable things with it. They gave it to Chavo Guerrero Sr., who's not a Cruiserweight, but yeah, then they also almost put him in a dress, so that's interesting. But yeah, if the commentary team is there putting over Daniel Bryan more than the matches, I'm going to be really pissed, is my bottom line on that. Since the tournament is taking place under WWE's watch, you think they should have thrown in some more of their own guys into the mix? Sin Cara, Austin Aries, Neville, Finn Balor, Rey Mysterio, Kalisto, Hideo Itami. Fucking love the Mysterio digs. It's so fucking good. It's like I don't like the guy or something. Sin Cara, yeah. Kalisto, yeah. Austin Aries, maybe. Neville, absolutely. Finn Balor, I would say no, only because he just got done being a heavyweight champion for NXT. Hideo Itami, I don't know, is he coming back? I legitimately would like it if he's coming back, but if he's back and if he's healthy, I don't get why he's not in it, because he's not doing anything else. But yeah, most of those guys, put Rey Mysterio in there just to watch him fucking gas himself. Do you think it was a good idea to lower the weight limit again for the Cruiserweights? First it was 220, now then it was 215, now it's 205. I didn't know that. The more you lower that gap, the more difference you create between the two styles. Because if you have somebody that's 220 and then you say that a heavyweight is 230, there's not much difference there. But if you say that a Cruiserweight is somebody under 205, then I don't know. It creates more separation between the divisions, and it makes the divisions seem more distinct, so I'm okay with it. Considering the belt was retired in 2007, do you think it was too late for guys like Tyson Kidd, Justin Gabriel, Evan Bourne to flourish properly after they debuted? I would say Tyson Kidd got a really cool deal teaming up with Cesaro. Evan Bourne had his wellness policy issues. Justin Gabriel is the biggest missed opportunity as far as like lightweight wrestlers, because if you go back and look at the Nexus, nobody gave a shit about the Nexus, but people were interested when Justin Gabriel got in the ring. And that never translated. They teamed him up with Tyson Kidd, and they were a fucking amazing team that never went anywhere. They threw them on Raw like one time, and they were dressed up like safety cones in the bright yellow, and I didn't understand it. Why Justin Gabriel isn't a main fixture on the main roster? Not a main eventer. Not a main eventer. He obviously would have been a mid-carder. But how he never became a main fixture on the WWE roster, like a Dolph Ziggler, for example, or like a Miz, I will never understand. I mean, he went off and he's done other things. TJ Black he's in Global Force now, isn't he? I think. Maybe. I don't know. Job Team Barry, former Cruiserweight Champions Edition. Billy Kidman, Paul London, Gregory Helms. I would bury Gregory Helms. I would job to Billy Kidman, team with Paul London. Because if I'm teaming with Paul London, then I'm basically Brian Kendrick, which is okay. Not exactly limiting this to cruiserweights, but who are some of your favorite executors of the moonsault? Rob Van Dam always had a good moonsault. Kurt Angle has an amazing moonsault, even though he almost never hit it. Right now, Kevin Owens, just because of the size of him, makes it more impressive and makes it a lot more painful to take, I would assume. And I give her a lot of shit for a lot of things, but I will say Charlotte's got a decent moonsault. Top 5 cruiserweights of all time. Fuck. I don't know, I'd say Kalisto. Amazing Red in... there's a lot of guys in TNA that I could say. I like Daniels. Kofi Kingston. And like I said, I will say once again Justin Gabriel, just because he's a fun guy to watch. Least favorite besides Rey Mysterio? I mean, Super Crazy never really did anything for me. La Parka didn't really do anything for me. Who else? Rockstar Spud. Why not? Because just no. How many Cruiserweight title reigns do you think Kofi Kingston would have had if the title had not been retired? Now, I will say to you guys, go back to my first video on this channel. One of the first bold statements I made in my SummerSlam 2010 review was that Kofi Kingston is the reason we need a cruiserweight division. Kofi Kingston could be the overseeing, like, I know a lot of people think if you brought back Rey Mysterio, he could basically oversee the cruiserweight division if there was one. I find that a bit false. I think if the cruiserweight division had never stopped, the big overseeing superstar in that division could have been Kofi Kingston. He could have been... They could have, because I said at the time, and I still believe to this day, if anybody still thinks that Kofi Kingston is a viable world heavyweight champion, you're delusional. But as the kingpin of a division, as the measuring stick of that division, Kofi Kingston could have been booked and built up by the WWE as the measuring stick for the cruiserweight division. But it's a missed opportunity, and it's not one that they can get back. Do you think the following wrestlers should have had a run with the belt? Side note, these are people who were in WWE prior to its deactivation. Jimmy Wang Yang, Shannon Moore, Daivari, Scotty 2 Hotty, Super Crazy, Brian Kendrick, Lita, Trish Stratus, with question marks. And just with the comment, hey, you never know. Now, I don't mind you including women in this scenario, because WWE did include women in this scenario, as I mentioned earlier, making Jacqueline the... Cruiserweight champion for a bit, but that was right before they transitioned her into being a referee for a while, so I don't really know what they were going with there. So I'm just going to give you some quick yeses and nos. Jimmy Wang Yang, no. Shannon Moore, definitely. Daivari, definitely. Scotty 2 Hotty, maybe. Super Crazy, no. Brian Kendrick, absolutely. How Brian Kendrick was... Brian Kendrick's another one like Justin Gabriel. How he never became a bigger fixture on the roster than he was, I will never understand. Lita, if you're going to put the Cruiserweight title on a woman again, fucking Lita should be your prime target. Your prime suspect, rather. Trish Stratus, maybe. Maybe. Thanks for answering my questions, and oh, by the way, fuck you, Hornswoggle. Oh, that's great. Logan Claiborne says, how long do you expect Dean Ambrose to hold the title? Until Battleground. It'll go back to Rollins, I think. Favorite Shield moment? I don't remember when it was, but there was a Fatal 4-Way a while ago that was set up, and I think it was the 3 members of the Shield plus Randy Orton, and the 3 of them, Rollins heel, Reigns and Ambrose were baby faces, but the 3 of them got together for a minute, and did the Shield triple bomb through the table to Randy Orton, and Rollins got all excited. Hey, maybe these guys aren't going to kick my ass. Hey, Shield, he goes to put the fists in. Ambrose and Roman beat the crap out of him, and you literally heard Ambrose and Reigns, when they looked at each other, because they were the only 2 left standing, they hopped back in the ring, and one of them said to the other one, hey, winner buys the beers, and then they just go at it. It was a brief 1 or 2 minute moment in a match, but it was so well done. I know a lot of people are going to say when Rollins turned on the Shield, or when the Shield took on the Wyatts. I will say, before they took on the Wyatts for the first time all 6 men just stood in the ring and just kind of sat there face to face and let the crowd soak it in. That was a pretty cool moment. But that one little thing in that match was I think it was just phenomenally done. Do you believe we've seen Undertaker's last match? Nope. If we'd seen Undertaker's last match, we would know that it was Undertaker's last match. Best Hell in the Cell, in your opinion? I got to go with HBK versus Triple H Bad Blood 2004 for overall match quality. I will say, for different reasons, all 3 times, Triple H versus Cactus Jack. I will say Mankind versus The Undertaker. Kind of goes down in history. And you got to go with the original, the OG Hell in the Cell match, as it were. Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. I mean, Undertaker and Mick Foley raised the bar up to fucking here, but the very first of anything sets the bar, and Shawn Michaels and Undertaker, I think, did a fucking phenomenal job. Do you believe that we will ever see CM Punk in a WWE ring again? Yep. Yeah, we will. He'll swallow his pride. He'll come back eventually. Brock Lesnar did it. CM Punk did it too. Or CM Punk will do it too. Based on pure in-ring ability, how do you rank these 5? AJ Styles, Cesaro, Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, and Dolph Ziggler. I rank them all great. No, in all seriousness, it's a hard thing to do. AJ Styles is he's great. He's dynamic. He's a little bit of he's the positive end of the Spot Monkey characterization or label or whatever, because he does it and he does it well. He mixes in the wrestling, he mixes in the submission stuff. He's got that vicious streak. He's got the phenomenal forearm and the phenomenal springboard somersault deal there. Styles Clash is fucking amazing. Cesaro is a fucking beast. Unfortunately, right now they're relegating him to the uppercut. There we go. Unfortunately, right now they're relegating him to just doing uppercuts and the swing. The same way they're sort of relegating Brock Lesnar to being the suplex guy, when we all know that he can do more than that. So I don't think we're properly seeing Cesaro's full extent right now. Seth Rollins has that CM Punk, Shawn Michaels total package deal going on. Anything Kevin Owens does is magnified in its impressiveness by his size, and Dolph Ziggler fucking ragdolls for everybody. So if I gotta pick somebody out of that group, I have to say Seth Rollins, but it's a close race with the guys you put in there. Top 5 best on the mic, in your opinion, in the WWE currently. Rollins, Ambrose. I like Becky on the mic, even though she's not on the mic that much. I like Paige and The Miz. Best finishing move by an NXT talent. Oh, Jesus Christ. Both Austin Aries and Finn Balor have a pretty damn good brainbuster right now, don't they? Not No Way Jose with his stupid wind-up baseball punch bullshit. If nothing else, for its simplicity, but the Kinshasa by Shinsuke Nakamura, it just looks fucking dirty. Book of Kurt Angle return to WWE. He comes back still managing the World's Greatest Tag Team. The World's Greatest Tag Team takes on the American Alpha. It's there. Either that, or he comes back and manages American Alpha in their debut on the main roster. You got to go one or the other. What do you think Brock Lesnar's next feud will be with? It's going to be with Mark Hunt in UFC, isn't it? But if you want me to choose, I would say turn Brock face and have him face Kevin Owens, or keep him heel and have him face Cesaro. This is the kind of match that somebody like Cesaro needs. As far as Kevin Owens goes, I would love to see Kevin Owens on him. Oh, Kevin Owens on the mic as well. Sorry for the last question. Kevin Owens, Paul Heyman on the mic alone would be fucking great. Thank you for that. Angry Mark says, do you think Kurt Angle will return to WWE? I think he'll be back. I don't think it necessarily means he'll be back in a wrestling capacity. He could be a manager, and if they kept him off TV, what kind of an asset would Kurt Angle be down in the Performance Center, down in NXT, down in a in a training context, you've got a wealth of knowledge there. You got other guys down there right now that are a wealth of knowledge. William Regal comes to mind, for example. But from an athletic perspective, there's such a different set of skills and assets that you could get from a guy like Kurt Angle. I would almost rather hear that he's become a trainer than come back, which is bizarre to say, because I would love to see him come back and have a match. It's unfortunate that what happened to Daniel Bryan happened to Daniel Bryan and forced him to retire, because Daniel Bryan versus Kurt Angle was a match that, I'm sorry, for all the shit that I say about Daniel Bryan, and it's still fucking valid, yes it is, for all the shit that I say about him, he was an amazing in-ring competitor. So Daniel Bryan versus Kurt Angle is another one of those great what-if scenarios. What wrestler got over that you didn't think would? The Miz. The Miz got over. Miz got over with how much people didn't want him to get over. The whole reality TV star, he doesn't belong here. Right? So people not wanting him to get over got him over. Do you think you would like Naomi if she got repackaged? Well, that would solve my character flaws with not liking her. As I've said before, some of what I don't like about Naomi is actually Trinity Fatu's fault, and some of it is WWE's fault. Her character with this like half-ass wannabe raver gangster shit is terrible, and whoever gave her a microphone should be shot. So if they repackaged her, you could get rid of some of that. You could make her a little more humble. You could make her a babyface. You could have her come out there and accentuate her athleticism rather than bouncing up and down on the turnbuckle like a freaking $5 whore. But it wouldn't change the fact that she sucks in the ring. She does. Go to YouTube, and it's not just me. It's really not. I know people want to say that it's me because I'm sexist and I'm racist and whatever other fairy tales they want to say. Go to YouTube. Type in, what is it? Naomi botch montage. It's fucking terrible. Oh, yes. But repackaging her would be half the battle, yes. Are you going to watch the Cruiserweight Classic? Absolutely. What's your favorite match of the year so far? Wow. I don't even know. I don't know where to begin to tell you what my favorite match. I will say that Shinsuke Nakamura versus Sami Zayn and Finn Balor versus Samoa Joe in the cage will be right up there in that, if I ever make that list. Favorite finisher in WWE right now? I think I've already done that. Have I done that? Yeah, I've done that. What gimmick do you miss in pro wrestling or in general right now? Or do you miss in WWE or in pro wrestling in general? I miss the casket matches and the buried alive matches, but those were specifically tied to the Undertaker. I miss the super aggressive heel. We're trying to get it back. Rollins is kind of floating on his own as a heel, which is making him sort of be a little bit more aggressive. Kevin Owens is the aggressive heel until he chickens out. You need a Triple H heel who will avoid the fight, but then when he's in the fight, absolutely fucking destroy you. You need to have a heel that can flip that switch, like a Triple H did. Anyways, I've been rambling for quite long. Fucking 48 minutes I've been rambling now. Anyways, thank you guys as always for participating. As I always say, if I can't do anything else on this channel, this will be the one series that will always stay. Because this is the one series that is driven by you guys. And I know that sounds corny, but I mean that absolutely genuinely. As I said before, please put your questions down in the box below if you want your questions to be included in the July Q&A. Please share this video out to anybody you know that might want to participate and maybe doesn't know about my little corner of the internet over here. You guys are all great. You guys, the usual suspects, you know who you are. I appreciate you guys. You guys are fucking great. We're racking up right around 615 right now on this channel, which is amazing. Can't thank you guys enough, and I don't thank you guys enough, so thank you. This has been your June Ask the Phoenix. I've been Spaz, your YWC reality check. Subscribe up there, talk down there, start a conversation, keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I will talk to each and every last one of you later, but for right now, I'm tagging out. Bye, guys.